Hey, it's Ollie, and in this video I want to talk about something that's a little bit difficult to talk about. It's about something that happened to me a couple of weeks ago, and but I wanted to talk about it because I think what I found since then is that this actually happens to a lot of people, and it has big implications for us as language learners, not only for how we go about learning the language on a regular basis, but also what it means, what the language means to us, and what we want for ourselves and for our lives. So I'll tell you what happened. I was sitting in Starbucks here in Canary Wharf in London, and I was just working, and this guy came up and sat down just around the counter from me. He got on the phone and started speaking Japanese, and I'm trying to improve my Japanese, so I kind of turned off my music and I was listening out of one ear, and then he got off the phone, so I kept on working, and a few minutes later, a couple of friends of his came up and they started chatting in Japanese. They were pretty clearly native speakers of Japanese. I was just kind of heads down working at my laptop, but out of one ear, just kind of eavesdropping on the conversation because it's not every day that you hear Japanese in London. So I was kind of just listening in, and then I turned around to look at them, and I saw that the two guys who had just come up and started talking to this Japanese guy were sort of 20-something white English guys. I assume they're English. I'm pretty sure they are. And that was quite a shock because not only is it unusual to hear Japanese being spoken in London, it is virtually unheard of to actually see a couple of kind of young white guys talking fluent Japanese. And I have to confess that my reaction in that moment was not a good one. I felt jealousy on the one hand, and I felt, I guess you'd call it, what would you call it? Feelings of worthlessness in a way. I mean, it maybe sounds more extreme than it is. Because obviously what happens is you can't always control your emotional reactions in the moment, right? And of course, your initial reaction to something is not necessarily your true feelings about any kind of topic. But nevertheless, as I kind of turned around and saw these guys who are 10 years younger than me, speaking unbelievable Japanese, to all intents and purposes, native level from what I could hear, I just suddenly started thinking, well, Ollie, what the hell have you been doing for the last however many years? Like, why don't you speak like that? How come these guys are better than, not just better than you, but so much better than you? And it actually got to me a little bit until I kind of shook it off a couple of hours later. I let it get to me, which is a pretty weird feeling for me to have, to be honest, because it's not something that happens to me very often. And it's a very negative emotion to have. So later that day, I was talking to a friend and I was telling them about what happened with this, and she said she kind of took me through a process of thinking about this, which I thought was very, very powerful. Now, the truth is, I don't know who these guys are. They may have grown up in Japan for all I know, right? They may have, and if they may be kind of half, as they say in Japanese, like half English, half Japanese. I don't know. They didn't seem to be. But the only way that someone at that age can become so fluent in a language is by having extensive exposure and living in that environment for some time. I know that, right? And so, in all likelihood, these guys, they maybe did Japanese at university for 4 years. They spent a year living abroad. Maybe they've been working for a Japanese company out in Japan for a few years, and that kind of that total immersion, cultural, social, linguistic immersion, it explains very neatly how you can get to that level. And so, my friend said, "Well, what would it take for you to get to that level?" And I said, "Well, I would have to move to Japan, get a job in Japanese, surround myself with Japanese people basically become Japanese, live a Japanese life. And she said, well, is that something you want to do? I said, no way. I kind of like my life. I like things as they are. I wouldn't want to do that. She says, would you want to just go out and hang out with Japanese people all day, every day? And if you could do that in London, would you just go and just hang out with Japanese people like non-stop, all day, every day, every evening, spend all your social life in that environment? And I said, no, I wouldn't. I don't want to do that. Life's good. And then it suddenly dawned on me, if that's not something I'm prepared to do, if it's not something that I want to do, then what on earth am I doing comparing myself to people that have gone and done that at different stages of their lives and had different paths to me? And I realised there must be, with the languages that I'm strong in, I realise that there must be people that hear me speaking those languages and think, oh, what's wrong with me? Why can't I don't speak those languages as well as Olly? And then I have that exact same reaction when I hear someone speaking these languages who have just taken a different path from me. They've achieved similar levels of proficiency in foreign languages. They just happen to be different languages and different kind of countries and cultures and people and all of this. And so here I am, mid-30s, trying to improve my Japanese within the context of of my whole life, right? And I'm judging myself against totally unrealistic and incomparable people, situations. And yet, so it makes no sense. And when I think about it like that, I kind of chastise myself for having thought that way in the first place. And yet I did. And I can't deny the fact that emotional reaction I had happened. But the more I thought about it, the more it kind of dawned on me, when you're learning languages, you have to place this pursuit in the context of your life and what you want for your life. It's the only way to do it. If you're only willing to spend an hour a day on your language learning, then you've got to have goals that are proportionate. If your goal is to become native level, then okay, fine. Well, that's a perfectly fine goal to do, and it's something you can achieve. But you've got to take proportionate action. Right? You can't sit around and just study half an hour a day. You've got to go out and do everything in your power to live a completely immersed life in that language. Right? That's not what I want. Yeah, of course, it would be nice to speak native level Japanese, but I've got other priorities in my life, other things that I want to do, other languages I want to learn, people I want to spend my time with, things I want to do with my website. And so in that moment, what I tried to do was to refocus my thoughts on, okay, what am I doing this for? Why am I learning Japanese in the first place? And the reason is because I love the language. I love the culture. It's very meaningful for me. I like to spend time in Japan. And really my goal is to be able to just to understand everything that I hear and that I read and have that a part of my life and let that enrich my life. That's all I need. And so I have to make sure that my goals are commensurate to that. So I'd like to know your thoughts on this. Please leave me a comment with your reactions, whether you've experienced something similar, the way that you think about this, whether you think it's ever a healthy thing to compare yourself to other people. Maybe you just don't understand what I'm talking about and you think that was a load of nonsense. Either way, I'd like to hear from you, so please leave a comment below. Feel free to share this video with anyone who you think might benefit from it, and subscribe to the channel if you'd like more stuff like this. It won't be like this every video, but sometimes it will be. There are actually language tips as well on the channel from time to time. All right, thank you very much for listening, and see you back in the next video.